Hello, denizens. As most of you know, comedy, watching comedy, listening to comedy, reading about comedy, writing comedy, performing comedy is my favorite thing. I've already talked about the almost complete disappearance of comedy from movies and TV. We are rejoicing over a few morsels being thrown our way: The Naked Gun, Happy Gilmore 2, and the odd sitcom like The Studio. Nobody wants this, shifting gears and mid-century modern, to name a few mostly middling efforts, though we really did like Nobody Wants This. Comedy was a major staple of both movies and TV since the invention of the mediums. And I can't think of a time we need comedy more than now. It could just be me, but social media has not built bridges as predicted, but stuck us into a video game we never asked to participate in. We need comedy, and by that I mean scripted, acted comedy, not the endless YouTube videos of squirrels going up people's pants. Although that's pretty funny. Memes don't count either. Political correctness, combined with market changes, the slow death of network TV, and decision makers who don't seem to care about comedy and probably don't have a sense of humor, have conspired to bring us to where we are now. But damn, next to horror movies, there is nothing cheaper to produce than comedies. I'm going to borrow heavily from a fantastic Substack post by Daniel Parris, which I'll link to in the description. It pretty much summarizes the state of comedy beautifully and nails every question one might have about why Hollywood has stopped making them. I don't care what the numbers are. It just doesn't make sense to me. People historically love comedy and enjoy laughing. Let me make one audacious statement. As more and more women are brought into the creative decision-making in Hollywood, you're getting fewer and fewer comedies. What's the connection? Well, men are pigs. We do disgusting things. The first comedy came from men grossing out women, which gave us joy. Most book publishing houses are now run by women. Shockingly, not a lot of ribald comedies are being published. And just look at what that gaggle of estrogen hoarders thought was funny when they created She-Hulk. Anyway, getting back to Daniel's piece, he starts off by writing, 1984 was a golden year for Hollywood comedies, headlined by Eddie Murphy's Beverly Hills Cop, which grossed $977 million, and Bill Murray's Ghostbusters, which earned an estimated $882 million, both figures adjusted for inflation. These films featured original narratives anchored by rising stars whose appeal hinged on their comedic talents. If we look at comedies as a percentage of total output, Daniel's assertion is spot on. This is what it looked like over the decades. 1930s, 21%. 1940s, 19.5%. 1950s, 14.5%. 1960s, 17%. 1970s, 15%, bit of a drop there, wonder why. 1980s, right back up there with 24%. 1990s, 26%. In the 2000s to 2010, 23%. From 2010 to 2014, it dropped to 8%. Certainly, it hasn't risen much above that between then and now. Historically, about 20% of all Hollywood's output were comedies. And there were many memorable moments in each decade. What has been memorable out of the 8% we're getting now? That is also a problem. Let's take a look at this change in comedy prevalence. Between 1990 and 2016, you can see horror is at the top, followed by thriller, sci-fi, fantasy, and drops in prevalence for animation, drama, comedy, war, and westerns. Animation was a bit of a puzzle, but I'm just going with Daniel's stats here. Superhero movies are not broken out separately, but I would love to see that between 2000 and now. However, let's stick with the topic. Comedies seem to be joining war movies and westerns in the dustbin. War movies and westerns make sense, but comedy should not be declining except for some of the things I've outlined, and Daniel will explain further. But here's what makes no sense. In a survey of moviegoers of what they want to see more of in theaters, you can see comedy is right up there neck and neck with action adventure across all demographics. People want to laugh, and they want to laugh in a room filled with other people. But studios can't deposit laughter into their bank accounts. In this chart, you can see comedies are a bargain to produce. On average, comedy films double their production and ad budgets. That's okay, isn't it? Apparently, once the studios got a taste for billion-dollar superhero movies, it wasn't okay. The unfortunate reality is that mainstream comedy no longer aligns with an operating model that defines 21st century Hollywood, one that prioritizes Wall Street-friendly revenues and visual spectacle over modest, reliable profits. An original comedy, unrelated to existing intellectual property, is unlikely to move Warner Brothers' stock price or boost ticket sales for struggling theater owners. Although comedies demand a smaller upfront investment, they also deliver modest returns. And that's the problem. If you're a studio exec and you have a choice between making the 32nd installment of the Fast and the Furious Race to the Center of the Earth, and a comedy no one has heard of with a cast no one knows about with little foreign interest, you're going to pick the former. As I've said before, the number one job of a studio exec is to keep their job. And there's no better way to do that than doing sequels. Jurassic Park just needs more CG dinosaurs. Scream just needs another stuntman wearing the mask. Daniel makes a fantastic point here. Meanwhile, comedy sequels rely heavily on the original performers and writers. A follow-up to Talladega Nights or Step Brothers would require the return of Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. Yes, comedy performers are aging out, although a version of Step Brothers at Ferrell's and Reilly's advanced ages would be pretty funny. Who's pumped for Spinal Tap 2? I am, but comedy is not going to be saved by us old farts. The next point he makes is that comedies tend to be of their time and don't age well. While I agree with Daniel to a point, many of us continue to quote Monty Python, Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, Shrek, Blades of Glory, Wayne's World, When Harry Met Sally, Austin Powers, Hangover, Caddyshack, Billy Madison, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, The Jerk, Talladega Nights, Airplane, Zoolander, Mystery Men, Dumb and Dumber. Look, jeepers, I could go on. Yeah, hey, you guys out there, give me some of your most memorable lines in comedies in the comments. So, sure, The Philadelphia Story, which starred Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn, and James Stewart, might not get the big laughs now, but Hollywood cranked out a lot of comedies with their biggest stars, which was obviously another attraction. Would Gen Z enjoy any of the movies I listed? They tend to be embarrassed by watching adults acting stupid. I've run improv classes, and the kids are a very introspective, serious, emotionally conservative bunch. Yes, political correctness has had a chokehold on studios, and boy, could we have fun with that now. The problem is the lack of visionary producers who love comedy, like Rollins and Joffe or Gene Damanian, who financed many of Woody Allen's later films. But isn't Gene a woman? Well, I can't be right about everything. The comedy AAA farm system is threadbare. Broadway, TV, and books are not supplying ideas or up-and-coming talent. who was the last comedy superstar graduating from SNL. It certainly ain't going to be Punky Johnson. Stand-up is thriving, but it's not leaking into movies. As I already mentioned, the old guard is not going to save movie comedy, but a golden age will happen. I know it. I can feel it. The need to make people laugh is ingrained in every class clown. They are out there. We will hear from them. Of that, I am certain. I think AI-produced productions are going to have a big impact. Do you have a favorite stand-up that you think that could transition into movies? Tell us. I'd like to hear. Till next time, denizens, be seeing you.